Welcome back to Future². Today I'll be speaking with Katherine Squire. She's the General Manager of App Development and DevOps at the Australian Stock Exchange. She has over 20 years experience in exchange, investment bank and vendor environments, and previously spent over 10 years at Macquarie Bank, leading large projects from inception through to implementation to deliver complex solutions within equity markets globally. She has extensive experience in product management, change management and information technology within the finance industry. So with that, it gives me much pleasure to bring you Katherine Squire. Welcome to the show, Katherine.
Hi, Steve. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How have you been?
Really good. Really busy, but very good.
Yeah. I mean, I have had a look at some of the various news publications across Australia that your face and your name has been popping up in. It sounds like there's been quite a lot of change going on at the ASX over the last, say, 6 to 12 months.
There certainly has been, and just recently we've had a lot of interest in some of the things that we've been doing. And I guess the main piece of work that I've been focusing on is implementing, cultural change, which is sort of something that you can't really start out a poster campaign for cultural change. You've got to do it in small, tiny pieces. Yeah. And so we started with looking at our automation strategy, and I sort of, I guess injected the idea of DevOps.
So
for the technology group.
For our audience who don't know what DevOps is, can you just provide them with a 20-foot view or a 2,000-foot view rather?
Well, yeah. Okay, now DevOps, I've said this, is not going to solve world peace, but it is about bridging the gap between development and operations. And I guess it's a philosophy, right? Yeah. So it's not a thing you can buy, and it's all about people. It's all about culture. And there's a bit of automation in there. In fact, I mean, there's a lot of automation. Yeah. But if you don't get the people bit right, you will fail. Yeah. And so that's been, we've probably been working about 13, 14 months now. And at first, just to get the initial buy-in from it was quite tricky because, like, what are you delivering? Like, yeah, we're speeding some things up. We're automating our build pipeline. We're looking at automating our infrastructure. And it's all highly technical, so it's actually quite tricky to get that initial buy-in. Yep. But now we're starting to see real moves forward in particular systems so we've got the underpinning sort of strategy of automation and cultural change. And then on top of that, we pick a system, and it's what I've sort of branded as my reboot strategy. So you pick a system and you try to take that system one giant leap forward, right? Right. So the thing is, organisations that are as old as the ASX, and you have a lot of legacy technology, and you can't boil the ocean, basically. You need to be very strategic in the systems that you pick, figure out where you're going to get the most benefit from, and you also need to make sure you've got the right people on that project who can implement that change. Yeah. And it's been fantastic. Like with this sort of system Big Leap program, we're up to our fourth system now, and people are getting quite excited about it. I actually had a meeting probably last month with a business where they said, when can my system be a part of the reboot strategy? Yeah. Like, oh, okay, that's great. Fantastic. That's fantastic. They're starting to come to us now to see how we can help improve their system, pay down technical debt, make sure that deployments are automated, make sure that we've got proper, strong test harnesses, and we're isolating our system so it can be, well tested and a part of the sort of improvements in quality and speed to market. No, that's great. And I think you touched on a few interesting points there. And one was about, I like to call these from bonfire to bushfire. And I think you've called it from little circles of sanity to wildfire, where you start with, when it comes to getting buy-in, go for the small wins first, go for the low-hanging fruit, set up some, bonfires, if you will, establish some trust and win people over. And eventually, if you execute that correctly, you'll have what you're currently experiencing, which is people coming to you and asking, hey, how can we become a part of this? Yeah, exactly. And I like to call it, we're making a micro move, right? And the way I look at it, a micro move is a small action. And this is what I mean by cultural change. Cultural change is about multiple small actions, right? And this is why I think a lot of big change initiatives fail, because we go in too big, we go in like from a top-down approach, and that's never, people won't buy it if they don't want to buy it, you know? And so it's, how do you make change that's authentic? How do you make it achievable? And so that people can actually focus on that bit, feel a sense of, I guess, satisfaction in the work they're doing and pride in their work, and feeling valued in what they do. And then that's the little cell of excellence. And then as you create more and more little cells of excellence, what you do is you expand your circle of sanity, right? And that's the bit where we've got to the stage now where we've got people from other groups within technology sort of looking over the fence going, what are you guys drinking over there? We want some of that. You know, this is because it's taken off, and particularly in development, and we've got real momentum where I've got my team sort of getting off the bench and really contributing and feeling safe that they can offer up solutions that are, maybe aren't your standard, bog standard solutions, but, Katherine, what about this? We could build this as a mini service, How about calendar as a service? What about file distribution as a service? So we're talking microservices now, right? So it's very exciting. And what I find more exciting is not the tech, it's the fact that everybody feels empowered.
Yeah.
And that's where the real change comes.
Yeah, and I think once everybody feels empowered, they're obviously getting a lot more fulfillment, and their jobs are more rewarding, and therefore they're putting more effort into it, but because it just feeds this positive feedback loop. Whereas if people aren't really empowered to go out and try different things, they're just going to see it as a job where they're just playing a role, and ultimately that's not good for them or for the organization in the long run.
No, that's exactly right. But and it's funny, it's one of these things that micro moves, the small actions, right? It seems like nothing at first, right? Just a small thing, a small drop in the ocean. But it doesn't have to involve you so closely. So my managers are now going off doing little micro moves of their own, and it's just taking off. So it's fantastic. Yeah,
and I think that's a great lesson there for our audience that, if you are looking to implement, say, DevOps or Agile or lean product development philosophies, trying to implement that across the entire board, if you've got an organization with thousands of employees and legacy infrastructure, it's going to be hard. Try to get a team of 5 to implement it. And, if they do it well, then you start sharing these stories, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think my initial fear also when I was starting sort of trialing in a couple of small teams was that they would then be seen as, the A team and everyone else was the B team, and I didn't want that to happen. So another key part of it is making sure that whatever wins you get, you share them and you allow other people to leverage off them, and you always make sure people get credit for the work that they're doing and involve everyone and be completely transparent about what you're doing. And that's because you definitely, you could sort of fall into that trap if you're trying to run bimodal. Some teams are agile, some teams are waterfall, and everybody wants to be in exciting new stuff.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you feel sort of disadvantaged and forgotten.
Yeah.
And that will kill any cultural change.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Would you say it's equally as important to perhaps, you've said share the wins, but is it important to then share the failures as well so that the rest of the organization can learn from that and that you get more return on failure? Or is that a tricky subject? Because
Well, I feel very strongly about creating a safe culture for staff. I think it's so important because if people don't feel safe to sort of fail, then they won't innovate.
Exactly.
Right. So I think that talking about failures, being vulnerable and saying, I tried this, but it didn't work, and I backed away and I've learned something there is so important. But I actually think that's actually really important for leaders to do that. Probably more important for leaders to do that.
Yeah.
To demonstrate their vulnerability, so that people see, okay, well, it's okay to try things, and if I fail, I can talk about it and talk about what I learned. Yeah. And I think that's where leaders can make a real difference by being genuine and, not trying to always look like they have all the answers, because they're human and they don't.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And not just paying lip service to failure, but actually maybe even incentivizing it or making it publicly, I suppose, acceptable or tolerable. By sharing these stories, it has the indirect effect of communicating, look, it's okay if you fail small and we learn something, and then we share it with everyone else and we build upon that.
Yeah.
And I
yeah.
mean,
No, I totally agree.
yeah. And you touched on an interesting point there as well about, that top-down buy-in, that they've got to set the tone. And, we've got companies like Amazon who have monthly failure awards as part of their culture for people who experiment and learn something. And I believe in their case, they only qualify for the award if they ran the experiment without permission, which takes it to that next level. But how important is it to establish that beachhead with senior management when you are trying to drive these cultural changes?
I'm not sure we want to implement a monthly failure award at the but I do love the idea. I mean, it is, it's really saying senior management back innovation, I guess. So, I think it's a great idea. I'm going to have a think about that one.
I guess you have to be careful.
Yeah,
I guess you have to be careful about how you define what a smart failure is, right? As long as people can still, place trades and all that sort of stuff. If the system goes offline, that might be constituted as not quite a smart failure.
No, I don't think we tolerate that at all. But I think we need to create an environment, particularly in development, where you can actually fail. Right, so you can, and it's all about experimentation and getting fast feedback. And so I'm all for that, and that's why I want to create. We've been working towards it, making sure that my guys can very quickly spin up environments and run tests and build new features. And if they get new ideas, then they can have a crack at it. So without worrying about going through all the hoops and the processes to get it permissioned into an official test bed and authorised by every man and his dog. What we're trying to do is create a space for innovation.
Yeah, absolutely love that as well, Catherine, because I guess that is one of the sticky points with most organizations where they try to put a square peg through a round hole kind of thing, where you've got all these processes that exist to maintain the status quo, make sure we don't break things, but then you try and innovate within those boundaries, and it's impossible because, like you said, you've got these long approval times and costs are high and everything else, and you're probably working on legacy infrastructure. So you need to carve out your own little, piece of the world to do that.
That's it. If it takes 10 days to get a hole in the firewall punched through, then you've probably forgotten the idea that you had in the first place. So we really do need to I guess, work in a leaner, more, giving more authority, to the guys to sort of make, own the whole sort of environment. And that comes back to DevOps as well. So having cross-functional teams, and building applications so that they're supportable, they're operatable, and not sort of throwing things over the fence that the next person or the next team has to deal with that. Thinking about how you're going to support your system, thinking about how you're going to operate your system, how are you going to monitor and manage it, thinking about your non-functional requirements in sprint zero, not towards the end of the project, thinking about how you're going to test the system once you've built it. So I keep banging on about, sprint zero, designing all your test cases up front, building code that's testable is so important, making sure everything's wrapped in APIs so that we can actually build test harnesses and mock it out. So, so, I mean, and these things are changing, and we're that's what I mean by the guys really stepping up. It's giving them permission to sort of go, we're going to build a top quality software here, and we're going to be a leading edge shop. Go to it. And they're all like, it's great.
And I guess a few things you touched on there was one, freedom to experiment. Two, the environment's set up in a way whereby people can try lots of different things, can move quickly, and I mean, speed is essentially fundamental to success. And like you said, failure, if you're not prepared to fail, then you're not going to innovate. So it sounds as if you've created this environment where people can place lots of small bets across different ideas, rather than what companies have traditionally done, which is placing few very, very large bets.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've got our first just app development only hackathon next month. It will be, and it's interesting because the goals that I've said, you can experiment with new technologies, solve a problem that you face within your day-to-day job, have fun, collaborate. There was no real rules about it. Just think about something that you want to build. And the ideas, I'm surprised, the ideas that have come back they're all fantastic, and all of them actually add business value, real business value. And so it's going to be quite an exciting day. I've got one team who are going to set up micro sprints, and they're going to do 2-hour sprints. And others are, they've picked, I guess, things, monitoring and managing of services within our environment. So it's going to actually help the lives of support people because, they have a better tool to use. And I mean, obviously this isn't productionizing things yet. This will be just proof of concepts, but the ideas are fantastic. And it really surprised me. I thought some would come back and say, I want to learn this new language, or, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, it's great.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And, running those sprints, I think if, Parkinson's law, right? If you give someone 2 hours to do something, they'll do it in 2 hours. If you give them 2 months, they'll take 2 months, right? So, I interviewed Jake Knapp a little while ago on the podcast. So he's at Google Ventures, and he wrote the book Sprint, which talks about their 5-day sprint philosophy. And we sometimes use that here or with clients, and we, condense that into 1 day. And it's amazing how many ideas come out of that 1 day. And it's not so much about the quantity of ideas, but the more ideas you have, then you can converge on, say, 2 or 3 ideas that may have legs and may be worth exploring further.
Yeah, no, that's right. And also, too, creating that environment where people feel they can, even if they throw out a dumb idea, it's not really dumb because it might spark somebody else to add to it, or slightly change it, and then it becomes actually a really great idea.
Yeah.
So you keep building on the successes of each other, and you're almost in that day or in that think tank. You're blowing holes in arguments and refining the solution, so you end up with something that's really on the money. Whereas if you sit there and start trying to write out requirements and go through the whole manual process of ideation, you lose something.
Yeah, and there is a time and place for a process, but it's perhaps once you have honed in on product market fit or problem solution fit, and you just want to execute. But in those early stages, it is chaotic. Right? Innovation by its nature is chaotic. And I think you touched on a great point there, which is when you are in these innovation sessions, hackathons, it's important not to judge. And that maybe on day 3, you can start to vote on ideas, but day 1, get as many ideas as possible. Don't vote. Dumb ideas are great because, like you said, you may build upon those ideas, and with a few evolutions, that dumb idea doesn't look so dumb anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. When I first got here, we talked about building containers, like using Docker for containers. And, we've actually now implemented a full Docker platform.
Wow.
And we've containerized our Atlassian tool stack. And one of the guys in my team was saying to me, man, Katherine, if you told me a year ago we'd even be talking about containers, I wouldn't have believed you. The fact that we've built our own platform is just amazing.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just that the abilities and the readings and the learnings that the guys had, they already had that. It's just they hadn't been given permission to articulate their ideas and what we should be doing.
Yeah.
So I think that's been the big change. It's not like anybody has a light bulb moment. It's just we got out of their way.
Yeah, and that's
I think what I mean? Like I think it's the Amazon guy says that. I can't remember, somebody from Amazon said, I hire smart people and then get out of their way.
Yeah, I think it was either Jeff Bezos or I think Richard Branson says something similar, and that's so true. And I think you kind of touched on something there, which is we can spend all the money in the world educating our people in agile, in lean product development or lean startup or whatever, but ultimately what it comes back to is the environment that's going to support these behaviors, like support taking risks and experimenting and putting their talents to try new things.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And I wanted to touch on something you've talked about previously, which is when it comes to getting buy-in, and particularly at the ASX, what you did was you built a brand and story around your culture change ambitions in order to win key stakeholders over. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of the work that I'm doing is highly technical, complex, and a bit boring, really. If you're a business stakeholder, it's like, oh God, Catherine's getting technical again. Uh-huh. And it's one of those things that I'm trying to. It's very difficult to tell these stories without getting technical, but I touched on it with the reboot strategy. It has simplified it. We've got some pillars that we sit on top of, which is build pipeline automation, infrastructure automation, test engineering, and one other. I can't think of it. Oh, environment as a service. Mm-hmm. Right. So we're looking at these sort of 4 strategies, and then overarching is the reboot strategy. So how we actually take the foundations and inject them into different systems as we go, and rather, coming back to let's not boil the ocean piece. How do we make small micro moves to really make a difference? And the thing is, that's an understandable story, right? It makes sense, and people get it. And also, too, I'm not promising the world because that can't really be delivered,
Yeah.
But over time, we will be able to, take a big bite out of the work that's in front of us, and I'm hoping within the next 12 months we'll really start to be able to improve our turnaround on features, improve, the automation that we're doing, and I guess look at some of our architectural pieces and, move more towards microservices and, sort of just how we can actually build systems in isolation so that, we can just replace pieces rather than, having to do this full end-to-end test that, takes forever.
Yeah, and I think there's a great lesson in there for anybody selling anything, which is, you can start on the sales pitch and on the technical jargon, but people just respond. People's brains respond much better to a story. And if you can set that context first and then start going into your sales, it makes it much easier.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's also too like with the branding piece of that, it's like I had the BA team come to me recently, and we're talking about sort of BDD, using BDD for a project, and I think that's probably the next sort of big leap for that team and for the cross-functional team, is how we go about start thinking about our requirements up front, and how we build those test cases up front and have a feature list, and just bang, we start from the test.
Yeah.
And it was them that came to me, and what I was thinking is we could brand it under the same strategy, so that when they go and try and get buy-in for this new process and new way of doing things, everybody gets that, part of the reboot, we're trying to improve things, and it's a much easier sell because people understand the brand. Yeah.
Yeah, basically leveraging off an existing brand rather than having to establish a new one within the organization.
Yeah. And as long as it's improving things and taking us forward, then that's what it's all about.
No, that makes sense. And I guess the great lesson there is, again, it comes back to what we were discussing earlier. Get those quick wins on the board, associate this internal brand with change, something positive, something that's actually creating results, and then just use that brand as a springboard to bigger and better things over time. And I wanted to touch on digital disruption, Katherine. I mean, ultimately it means that CIOs need to be closer attention to their customers and to their CMO. Not sure how much you can talk about this in particular, but keen to hear your thoughts on this and whether or not the app development team is engaging customers early on in the product development piece.
Oh, no. Actually, the application development team, not with internal customers, we do, not with external customers.
Yeah.
But certainly we're trying to create, I guess, a leaner approach to building software. So, with our business owners as sort of the product owners as well, and we have put a fair bit of effort into sort of building. I shouldn't say building a bridge. It's not that we've always had a bridge, but just improving that relationship and trying to understand exactly what is strategically important, what is tactically important, and also too, and I think this is definitely the responsibility of technology people, is to better articulate why certain things have to happen, and building that trust relationship with the business and the product owner has worked really well in a couple of systems where we have their sponsorship to go ahead and rethink things.
Yeah.
And so that closeness to our internal customer has been fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
I mean, I'm lucky because I spent 10 years at Macquarie, and I worked sort of opposite my customers. They were, options traders. Mm-hmm. So you knew when they were happy, and you knew when they were unhappy. Mm-hmm. So you ended up with a very real understanding of what worked and what didn't, and of their business. And that is so important if you want to build high-quality software.
No, that's great. And what's your advice on, I mean, there's a lot of talk about digital strategy, and a lot of people say there's only strategy in a digital world, right? And, you've said that what you've done at the ASX is, you focused on that seamless integration between new and existing systems. And for companies, particularly large companies in the financial services space, I mean, how do you tackle that challenge? I know you've talked about, basically compartmentalizing things and having separate systems to experiment. But in the long term, is it just a matter of, like you've said, iterate over time, slowly but surely change not only the culture, but the broader infrastructure landscape, as you have been doing over the past year or so?
Yeah, I think I'm very wary of the giant decommissioning project. It never happens, right?
Yeah.
In my experience, it never happens, because I don't think I've ever watched or listened to this Andy Kite from Gartner did a presentation on decommissioning legacy applications, and it's just fantastic the way he described it, because we talk about sort of, we're going to take this system and replace it with this one and decommission the old one. What you end up with is two systems.
Yeah.
You sort of partially replace the other one, but then you run out of cash at the end, and so okay, we'll keep the old one as well. And so then you build up this more and more complex environment. And so I think we need to move away from the concept of decommissioning a system and actually start thinking about continuous code decommissioning, right?
Yeah.
And it's a different approach to it, and it's saying every time you go into your code base, you refactor, you always leave it in a better place than it was before. And this is the other thing, developers never delete code. And if I comment it out, I don't know whether. Sorry, stop me if I'm gibbering here.
No.
But it's quite funny because they'll comment out code and leave it there, and so the next developer comes along and looks at it and goes, "Oh, that's commented out, but was that important? Was that right?" There's no, and it's. I think we should be simplifying, right? So you constantly refactor. Less code is better.
Yeah.
If you just less chance of defects, less lines of code. But those elegant solutions mean you need to do some serious work up front in your design. So if we take that approach rather than having this, multi-million-dollar project to sort of say, we're going to decommission this system, then I think it's a safer way, and it's a way that's actually embedding continuous improvement.
Yeah. And that ties into what you said earlier about these, over-ambitious change management programs that never really work.
Yeah, and that ties in with the whole micro-move piece.
Yeah.
It's, these are all small actions. By themselves, they're not that expensive.
Yeah.
So it's not going to hurt the business to be able to back small moves, small actions, right?
That's
but
right.
over time, they build up.
Yeah, and we deliver that value over time. And it's important to effectively articulate that the cost of doing or executing these small actions, like you've said, it's insignificant compared to the multi-million-dollar organizational change or infrastructure decommissioning projects. And it's important for decision makers to understand that.
Yeah, no, and I think also too, there are obviously other pieces of work with decommissioning where you need to do some serious analysis and
of course
re-architecting, and there will be some projects, but it's more a philosophy of whenever you get into any system, you leave it in a better state.
Yeah.
And if you make a change, then you fix the automated test at the same time, right? So you write your tests, you make sure that you're not sort of bolting things on.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I guess I wanted to touch on blockchain, Katherine. I'm not sure how much you can tell us about this, but nonetheless, blockchain, if it works, if it does end up being everything it promises to be, it could result in settlement that's close to real time. And I know the ASX has been doing some work with digital asset holdings to build a blockchain that could ultimately replace the clearing and settlement systems provided by the CHESS platform. What, if anything, can you tell us about this?
Well, I can't tell you a lot about it, but the proof of concept has passed, and I know that the project is going well. I've got a couple of my guys working on it. We have an innovation lab up on level 8 now, which is very exciting, and I at the moment sort of they're working on pulling together all the requirements that we would need, and there's certain gates within the project, and at each gate the project is reevaluated and as a go, no go, and that's probably about all I can say. I think the technology is very exciting.
Yeah.
I think it could be a real game changer in many industries.
Yes.
So who knows?
Yeah, it's definitely No, go for it.
It's still fairly immature. I shouldn't say immature, but I think there's a lot of proofing out.
Yeah.
As experienced,
of course,
in different industries before it sort of becomes, productionizable.
Exactly, and there's still a lot of commercial and technological barriers to it being adopted, as a mainstream application across.
Regulatory as well.
Yeah. So, Katherine, can you tell me about another successful system big leap?
Sure. The second one that we did, which was our first foray into external cloud, and it was basically a compute-intensive algorithm that we were running on-prem, but was running pretty slow and couldn't sort of scale linearly. So the actual application lent itself to cloud because we wanted to scale horizontally. And so we re-architected this application to be cloud fit. That you've got to be very particular about the applications that you put in the cloud. You don't want to pick up something that's, just an on-prem app and shove it in the cloud because it's going to cost you a lot of money and you'll regret it. You really need to think about what applications are appropriate, and that goes from a data security perspective and regulatory perspective as well. So anyway, we chose the right application. We re-architected it. The algorithm's now down to runs in 6.5 minutes. And because of the way it's developed, we're using AWS Lambda. And so it doesn't matter how many new clients we have of the system, it just scales horizontally. So it always takes 6.5 minutes, no matter how many clients. And we burst it out, we bring it back, and we've got our results. And so it's actually been a good choice, and it's what I like to call a micro move to the cloud, because it's a demonstration of sort of saying, okay, we want to play with this, new technology, and the team that I chose were also sort of very excited about it, and so it didn't just directly impact them, like those around them sort of got quite excited about the work we're doing with external cloud. And so it's been a great experience, and again, it's helped with that momentum for changing the way we do things and rethinking how we are delivering our software. And the other good thing was we built we put together like a virtual team across the exchange, where we picked people from different areas to focus on just the regulatory and security aspects of it, and making sure that what we built was, we found this wonderful person in regulatory assurance, Francine, who's fabulous, and she's just been such a help for us. She's an expert in sort of data security and privacy, and she went through all the regulations for us, and we looked at any risks and mitigated them. And so it's just been a really worthwhile, successful project because we thought it out properly from the beginning. It picked the right application, and it's helped. Not only have we got the outcome where the system's vastly improved, but we've really got a lot of cultural sort of fire behind it.
Yeah, and I think I really love that approach because it was all about fit for purpose, and there's a tendency for decision makers at large companies or for IT to think holistically and say, well, we can't move everything to the cloud, or, well, we can't have everyone running around being entrepreneurs, moving fast and breaking things. And that's not it at all. Like, there are fit for purpose. There are businesses that will require people experiment a little bit, move a little bit faster, and there will be systems that can go on the cloud and others that we need to host ourselves.
Exactly. And I also think it was our duty, like as the first team to sort of be building an in-house app to go to the cloud, it was our duty to make sure what we built was bulletproof, right? Because we're blazing a trail, and it's so important that these first little micro moves you get right. And so it continues to help. When we were talking about that buy-in, it continues to help with the buy-in.
So you've got a responsibility to the ongoing sort of innovation agenda and to other people in the organization who want to start innovating, that if you are going to move first and you are going to take systems and put them on the cloud, that you get it right.
From all aspects of it, and so that's why this cloud working group has been, very successful. So
great.
It's a good approach for us, worked well for us.
Fantastic. I guess last formal question, and then we'll get into our lightning round, what are you most proud of out of your time at the ASX?
I think there's a lot of things. I'm very proud of the Docker platform that we've built, and I'm very proud of the excitement and momentum that I've created.
Awesome. I love that. That's great. That's a great answer. Well articulated, and by the sound of things, you're definitely driving some serious change on a cultural and infrastructure level there. So that's fantastic. So, as I alluded to, lightning round time. Are you ready, Katherine?
I guess so.
As ready as you'll ever be. Okay. So question number one is, if you could work for any company at any stage of the company lifecycle, who would it be and why?
I think startup. When it's small and you just, there's so much variety, and you learn the entire business, and you're at the coalface of success and failure.
Yeah. Any particular startup?
I would have liked to have been at Atlassian.
Yeah.
When it was a startup.
Yeah, back when, what was it? They just set it up because they wanted to make $40K a year and, replace what they would have made in their graduate roles. Yeah, and now...
That would have been nice.
Yeah. What are they worth now? Like several $1 billion? Yeah, that would have been a fun journey. All right, question number 2, Katherine. We could ponder our time with Atlassian another time, but number 2 would be, if you could ask anyone a question, dead or alive, who would it be, and what would you ask?
Dead or alive? I think I'd have to ask Jane Austen something.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I'd just ask her to tell me a story about her life. How did somebody become such a gifted writer in 31 years?
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's just...
Yeah.
That's all I can think of.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm sure you'd need a little bit of time to listen to the answer for that one. And finally, Katherine, you're doing some amazing things at the ASX, and I like to ask all of my guests, what do you do to stay on top of your game? Do you have any rituals or routines that you partake in?
I'm a runner.
Mm-hmm.
So I go running just to relax. It calms me down.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just very meditative.
Yeah, I love running. Is that a morning thing or an after work thing, lunchtime?
Oh, definitely morning.
Yeah.
Morning.
I love...
And then I can feel self-righteous all day.
Love that. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I'm such a advocate of training in the morning because then you've just got this energy and buzz about you all day, rather than, getting that buzz in after work. It's kind of defeats. I mean, it doesn't completely defeat the purpose, but you don't get as much benefit out of it. I don't think, anyway.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah, awesome.
I need a wine time, so.
Yeah, exactly. Love my red wine. So. Finally, Katherine, where can people go to find out a little bit more about you or connect with you?
LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on LinkedIn, so...
Awesome.
Yep.
Fantastic. Cool. Okay, well, thank you again for your time today. You've been an awesome guest, and I'm sure our audience would have taken a few golden nuggets out of that conversation. So thank you again, Katherine.
Great. Thanks, Steve.
Cheers. Well, that's it for my chat with Katherine Squire. I hope you enjoyed that homegrown story from Down Under. As always, if you're picking up what we're putting down, we'd love it if you took just a second of your time to like, share, or subscribe to this show either on iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. And as always, if you'd like to find out more about Collective Campus, the innovation hub school and consultancy based in Melbourne CBD, and perhaps download some resources such as innovation tools, blogs, podcasts, videos, or webinars, head to www.collectivecamp.us. Until next time, Future² out.